Because you know what? If he could call you every day and his actions aligned with his words, you would not be crying, would you? You'd just be happy. Hello, angels, baddies, and bitches. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Amber Akilla. Follow me on all the things: Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, SoundCloud. Subscribe to the podcast, Friend Crush with Amber Akilla. Subscribe to the Patreon to be part of the group chat, patreon.com/Amber Akilla. Okay, so I've been talking about doing this whiteboard series and I have lots of different ideas and things that I want to communicate. And I was getting caught up on feeling like I had to have like a particular structure or curriculum. And then I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to spit off the dome when a concept or idea comes to me. And then, you know, it will just reach the people it needs to reach. You don't have to watch these things in order. Maybe a natural order or like logic to what I'm doing will form as I go along. Sometimes you just have to do something badly or just do it and then adjust as you go. You know, I will learn more from this process than just sitting and like thinking about what I have to do. Anyway, so today's video is going to be about the crying gap, inspired by a question or a comment that I got while I was literally just on live and someone saying they're crying over a boy and their chemistry homework. Now, the thing about crying over a boy, a situation, is that usually you are not crying over the external thing, like the boy or the job or the person. You're crying about this gap between the reality and your expectations. So here you have reality. What the hell? Okay. Reality is neutral. Reality is just the events that happen. And then we are always projecting our own interpretations onto reality. Okay. So this is why meditation practice, each person's practice is going to be different. Okay. Maybe you sit and you observe your thoughts 10, 20 minutes, an hour a day. Maybe you go for walks without music. Maybe there's some sort of exercise that you do that allows you to just observe your thinking. And also journaling. I have a video about journaling, crash out in private so you can focus on being hot. Journaling is about creating a safe space for all the different parts of you, you know, communicating with yourself in a way that is judgment-free so that then you can choose the things that you actually want to act on, the thoughts you actually want to act on and the thoughts that are just thoughts and like not important. These two practices are really important for you to be able to observe your projections onto reality, because you will always be projecting whether you like it or not. You will always interpreting reality through your own lens, and so is everybody else. But you can discern between what your expectations are and reality and what actions you can take to close that gap or to release yourself from the chokehold, okay? So when you are crying over a boy, you are usually crying over this gap. It is not the boy. The boy is here. The job is here. The friend is here. They're doing what they're doing, their actions, their reality. They have their own projections as well on the reality. You have your own projections too. You have your own expectations. So let's say this is the boy that you're dealing with. Maybe he's promised you in words. Maybe you have delusions and fantasies and your own projections and your own ideas around what he could be. The potential that you see in him, not the potential that he actually demonstrates, okay? So you have expectations for him. It is natural to have expectations. And I also have a podcast episode where I talk about the difference between expectations and standards. So I have my standards and I maintain my standards through boundaries. Boundaries are the way that I respond to reality. So if someone does something, a boy disrespects me, I have my standard for how I want to be treated. He's disrespectful to me. My boundary is I move away from anyone that disrespects me. Okay, I'm not going to communicate with a person. You disrespected me, you have to respect me. No. Who you are, reality. Reality, actions. Expectations, thoughts. words. These things don't carry the energetic weight of actions. That's why actions speak louder than words. When you are crying, it is because you have attached to the thoughts and the words and the expectations, and you are not rooted in reality. You are not looking at the actions, the hope that you have between the reality and the expectation being met. You're grieving that when you are crying. Okay? So it's not the boy or the job or the friend that necessarily needs to change. It's your relationship between the reality and the expectations and the thoughts and the projections and the delusions. So this is why you cannot find closure in the place that hurt you. This boy keeps disrespecting you, keeps not meeting the expectations that either he sets through words or that you've set through your delusion and your fantasy. If he keeps disrespecting you, it's not up to you to change him, okay? Because he's demonstrating his pattern of behavior through his actions. His actions speak louder than his words. He promises you that he's going to call you every day. He only hits you up at 2 a.m. His actions speak louder than his words. The energy behind the actions carries more weight than the words, carries more weight than your expectation or the hope or the attachment you have to him calling you every day, which he doesn't do, okay? Because you know what? If he could call you every day and his actions aligned with his words, you would not be crying, would you? You'd just be happy. You'd be having a good time because there would be integrity. The integrity would be in the room with us. His actions would speak just as loud as his words. You wouldn't be crying. So you're not crying over the man, you're crying over the gap between the reality and the expectations that either he's set and he wants you to attach to more than the actions, or that you've set, and your blindness to the reality, your denial of the reality. You know what I mean? So if you were rooted in reality through regular meditation and journaling, you're making a note of the way that this man or this job or this friend treats you, or how you respond and how you feel in their presence when you engage with them. If you're rooted in reality, you can notice the pattern. He says he's going to call me every day, but he only calls me at 2 a.m. Okay, I'm just using this as an example, but there could be any gap. He only hits you up for a booty call, but he says he's going to call you every day. Okay, let's say that's the reality versus the expectation and the delusion that you have around him. And maybe your standard is that you want to be called every day. Okay, you want to be with someone that you speak to on a regular basis. That's not his standard, obviously, because he just wants to booty call you. If you are able to discern and diffuse your awareness between your expectations, your standards, and the reality and the relationship between these things and the expectations that people try to create between you and them. If I saw reality for what it was and I noticed, he says he wants to call me every day. That's my standard, okay? But he doesn't actually call me every day. He only booty calls me. So you need time to pass as well to observe the patterns of reality and the patterns behind someone's actions and your own actions as well, okay? So then, because I'm aware of this gap and I'm not just attaching to words, I know to look at actions. I don't take it personally when this gap isn't met. I'm not crying because I'm like, I'm not surprised. You say you're going to do this, but this is what you do instead. But this is my standard. And my boundary is, if you don't call me every day and you don't want what I want, goodbye. I don't want to cry over unmet expectations because I'm setting my standard. My standard requires me to walk away from what I don't want and towards what I do want. Maybe for the time being, there's nobody calling me every day, but because I enjoy my own company and I'm focused on being hot and having fun, I really don't give a fuck. Okay, I've got other people to talk to, got money to make, got things to do. So I'm rooted in reality and I'm able to look at my actions over time. Another important point is that you need to understand that your actions also speak louder than your words. You might say that your standard is you want to be called every day, but if you entertain anything that is not that, e.g. being booty called, now your actions speak louder than your words, okay? Because you keep allowing this behavior and you don't walk away from it and you don't set the standard of wanting to be called every day. Sometimes you can't expect a person who continuously acts against your standard to suddenly meet it. You need to walk away from it and then into a situation where that can be met, you know? Or maybe you need to let go of your standard and settle. It's up to you. I don't know. Like for some people, it's like, okay, I want to be called every day. Actually, I find people really annoying. So maybe you can call me every other day. I've updated my standard. Do you meet the standard? You still don't meet the standard. I'm going to talk to someone else. I'm going to focus on something else. You know what I mean? Like your actions also speak louder than your words. So you cannot keep saying, I want you to call me every day. I want you to call me every day, but still pick up the phone when you get booty called. That tells him, yeah, she likes to be booty called. She doesn't care that much about her standard. She just wants to be booty called. She's always here. Because the thing is as well is like, when you're showing up into reality, people don't know what's going on in your head, okay? Even if you say XYZ, again, the energy behind your actions is always going to speak louder than the words. There's always going to be more energy behind what you're doing and not just what you're saying and what you're thinking, okay? So who you are becomes the summary of your actions. Your thoughts and your standards and your words can create like a framework, a direction that you want to move in, but what you actually do is going to define your character and your experience and the quality of it as well. So that's also why I say, keep your expectations low, but your standards high. Everyone is living in their own reality. Everyone has their own patterns of behavior, their own habits. You need to lock in on what your habits and your actions are in your life, okay? Because that is going to speak for itself. That's why it's so easy to manipulate women that are like, I hate men, this and that. You're basically giving men the playbook on how to manipulate you because all you're doing is focusing on what you don't want. You keep saying what you don't want. You keep talking about what you don't want, but what you don't do anything. What do you want to do? Spend time doing that. That's what being hot and having fun is all about. If I'm having a good time and my energy and my actions are directed towards that, it will become much easier for me to discern in reality through actions who aligns with me being hot and having fun, who aligns with this version of me being hot and having fun. You know what I mean? Because my actions carry more weight than just my standards, and my actions determine my standards. So I'm living according to my standard. It's easy for me to maintain them, okay? But if my standards are just a theory in my head and not aligned with my reality and my actions, then I'm going to be ugly and having a bad time, aren't I? So you are not crying over the boy. You are crying over the gap between the reality and your expectations. Because if he was meeting the expectations, if he had integrity, a congruence between words and action, you wouldn't be crying. If you were rooted in reality and you saw him for who he was, you would have less to cry about. You'd be disappointed, but you wouldn't necessarily be surprised because you're like, well, he only hits me up for a booty call. Obviously, he lacks integrity. If I want to have integrity for my standards and being hot and having fun, then I have to say no to the booty call because what I want is to be treated with respect. Men who don't have integrity are not drawn to women who do because they can see and they can feel you're really about that life, okay? You are standing on business. And sometimes they'll try to test you. They test you because they say, I'll call you every day. Yeah. And then they'll test you by saying, well, how about you come over to mine at 12 a.m.? When you say, no, sorry, I'm busy being hot and having fun. I've got other things to do. No, not tonight. Oh, okay. They're going to try it elsewhere. That's how you protect yourself from the crying gap. It's natural for this to exist at all different stages of your life. It's not about eliminating this dynamic. It's about becoming aware of it and navigating it with intention and awareness. Personally, I think that meditation and journaling, time off social media, offline time, helps you to re-regulate your understanding of time and energy and how much effort it takes to be hot and have fun, okay? You don't just think about this. You actually have to get a hobby. You have to live with intention, work with intention, connect with intention. Say you're going to do something and then do it, okay? When you know how to do that, you know who else is doing it to your standard, and that standard will evolve and change over time. So Don't be fooled by the crying gap, guys. When you are crying, remember that it's not necessarily the person that is going to give you closure, that is going to make the crying stop. Okay, don't think that if you can change this man from booty calling you to calling you every day, that's the only way out. Okay, sometimes you just got to cut them out. Eliminate the source of the problem. The boy that's booty calling you and promising you he's going to call you every day. Goodbye. Focus on your job. Focus on your friends. Focus on your hobbies. And sometimes the men or these situations, they're just testing you as well, you know. Some people have the ability to integrate their words and their actions, but they want the easy way out. That's also human nature. You know, you probably observe that in yourself too. But at some point you realize, like, okay, if I actually want to connect with this person, if I actually want to be good at this thing, I'm going to have to show up consistently. It's like going to the gym. Like, can I just go to the gym one time and lift some weights and then hope I'm going to be fit forever? No. And it's natural for me to want to be deluded into thinking that. But if I'm really committed to being fit, I have to be consistent. You know, muscle takes time to build. And that's the same with mental muscle too, having standards and integrating actions and words. So, you know, some men, if they can have the easy way out, they'll come at you with that energy, and you setting the boundary, they're like, okay, now I know better. And maybe they keep testing you, and maybe you enjoy the test, maybe you don't enjoy the test. It's up to you. But yeah, the crying gap. Remember, keep your expectations low and your standards high. You can't expect everybody to meet your standards. You can only expect you to meet your standards. And then when you contribute generously, you can then assess according to the feedback whether you continue. The boy that wants the booty call, you who want consistent communication, what's authentic for you guys is not each other, and that's okay. And when you are able to discern between the reality of someone's actions over time versus the expectations that they try to set in your mind, or that you set without them even saying anything, you will be able to maintain your standards. You know, like sometimes they've never even promised to hit you up every day. That's just what you want. But they booty call you as a test just to see, because that's what they want. And you keep saying yes. You keep lowering your standards. So your actions speak louder than words, or whatever standard you have in your mind. So you need to close the gap yourself through what you do, not just what you think, not just what you say. And then you'll be crying less. I guarantee it, okay? It can be uncomfortable at first. It can be confusing and overwhelming to say no to someone who you've developed a delusion and attachment to. But when you notice that you have it, that's when you can start to detach. That's when you can start to rewire. That's when you can start to redirect your energy back to being hot and having fun, what's really important in life. And then being in alignment and meeting the people that share the same standards and values and integrity that you have. Yay! Okay. Thanks for tuning in. Hope this was helpful. More videos to come. Like, comment, subscribe. Love you lots. Speak soon. Stay hot and having fun. Don't forget. Love you.